Supreme Court Justice Coney Barrett sat across from tech mogul Elon Musk on the brightly lit interview stage, her usually serious face for a moment frozen in shock. A moment before, Musk had pulled out his phone and pulled out something no one had expected. "This changes everything about the Supreme Court," he replied matter-of-factly, sliding the device across the table. Barrett's hand was shaking when she went to touch it, and the audience collectively gasped as her look went from puzzled to incredulous. Suddenly, without a word, she pulled off her microphone, jumped to her feet, and marched for the door, and cameras covered all the moments in between. What Musk had revealed in this instant risked shattering the foundation of America's judicial system. Prior to diving into this explosive report, make sure to leave a comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our latest political exclusives. Weeks of tension have been building up. Justice Coney Barrett, famous for her conservative rulings and placid demeanor, had consented to a first-ever live TV interview with host James Morrison. Such a visit was highly unusual. Supreme Court justices rarely grant interviews, never mind live broadcast ones. Barrett, aged 52, had become the linchpin of the court's conservative majority since being installed by then-President Donald Trump in 2020. Wearing her signature pearl necklace and stylishly coiffed brown locks, she emanated an air of old-fashioned values and judicial humility. While her backers praised her courtroom genius and her commitment to applying the Constitution in its written meaning, critics called her out as imposing a religious agenda through her decisions. The interview was to be a pleasant conversation about her new book on constitutional law until a surprise visit from an unexpected visitor, Elon Musk. The world's richest individual and owner of X, formerly Twitter, SpaceX, and Tesla, Musk cut a stark figure next to Barrett's formal attire and stern demeanor, wearing a black t-shirt. "We have Supreme Court Justice Coney Barrett and businessman Elon Musk here for what promises to be an illuminating discussion," Morrison declared, his tone concealing the evident tension in the studio. "Justice Barrett will discuss her new book, and Mr. Musk has signaled an interest in judicial transparency. The stakes could not be higher." Barrett spoke for the country's highest court, and Musk for a vast empire of influence and means. Even before the first question was asked, the silence between them was thick, almost tangible. "Justice Barrett, your book is an appeal to strict constitutional interpretation," Morrison began. "But Mr. Musk has complained about so-called judicial activism. Let's start there." Barrett's smile was tight, her fists clenched on the table. "I think to abide by the Constitution as our founders wrote it. My book simply lays out that judicial philosophy." Musk leaned back in his chair, a slight smile on his face. "I'm more interested in how those philosophies play out in the real world," he said, reaching for his phone, "especially when personal connections might influence decisions." The audience went silent. It was clear this wouldn't be the friendly conversation Barrett had expected. As the interview continued, the tension grew thicker with each exchange. Host James Morrison struggled to keep Musk in check as he steered the conversation away from Barrett's book and onto recent Supreme Court rulings. "Justice Barrett, your court just handed down a decision in the Watson tech regulation case," Musk said matter-of-factly, talking about a case directly affecting several of the tech behemoths. Barrett, though her composure remained unruffled, tightened her fists. "The court decided according to settled precedent and constitutional principles, Mr. Musk. As you are aware, I am not permitted to discuss particular deliberations." Musk responded, scrolling on his phone, "Because I've been looking into the associations between justices and the companies impacted by your rulings." Barrett's face spasmed at this reference, and Morrison tried to circle back around to Barrett's book. "Shall we then talk about the problems in your book, Justice Barrett?" "I think the American people deserve transparency," Musk interrupted, his tone firm but calm. "For instance, did you know that Justice Barrett took a private retreat last summer with executives from big tech companies?" The room buzzed. Barrett's face remained impassive, but a faint flush crept up the neck. "I attend a lot of legal conferences and events, Mr. Musk, all within ethical guidelines. A retreat funded by the Liberty Foundation," Musk continued, "which incidentally filed an amicus brief in the Watson case." Morrison cut in, Mr. Musk, if you have complaints, perhaps there are more appropriate channels. I'm not accusing anything. Musk responded matter-of-factly. I'm talking facts, facts that have been verified by my team at X. To Barrett, he said, Justice Barrett, do you think the public has a right to know whether there are potential conflicts of interest on the Supreme Court? The studio fell uncomfortably still. Barrett squared her papers, her gestures slow and precise. The court has established recusal procedures that are utilized by all justices, she responded icily, but now her tone was clearly colder. Musk nodded thoughtfully, continued to scan his phone. That's curious, because I've been looking at voting histories of justices in relation to their personal associations. He looked up. You know that where the Liberty Foundation has filed briefs, there are statistically perfect voting blocks. Not one deviation. Morrison's expression turned concerned. Mr. Musk, we have to be very careful about drawing conclusions. It's just data analysis, Musk had remarked, an innocent smile spreading over his face. I like patterns, and this pattern is intriguing. Barrett's face had become stern. Mr. Morrison, I agreed to discuss my book, not defend myself against vague innuendos, Barrett had replied, her voice icy. Vague? Musk raised an eyebrow. I can be more specific if you'd like. Morrison sadly tried to lead into a commercial break, but Musk continued right over him, his words trumping Morrison's objections. Justice Barrett, are you familiar with the communications between Justice Keller and CEO Marcus Blackwell in the run-up to the Watson ruling? Barrett's face paled. I have no knowledge of any communications between my colleagues and outside parties. Ah, that's unfortunate, Musk responded, digging a tiny flash drive from his pocket and placing it on the table. Because I do. The camera zoomed in on the small device sitting between them as Morrison was finally able to cut to commercial. When the show came back, the atmosphere had entirely shifted. Barrett's usually impeccable posture was now rigid, while Musk slouched in his chair with the smug self-confidence of someone who has all the cards. When the program returned on, Morrison was clearly restless, glancing offstage every now and then. Justice Barrett sat stiffly, her eyes cold and unflinching. Musk, though, was completely at ease, flash drive again in his hand. We're back with Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Elon Musk. Morrison spoke hesitantly. Justice Barrett, would you like to respond to Mr. Musk's comments before the break? Barrett smiled tightly, patting her blue blazer into place. I believe that Mr. Musk is engaging in irresponsible speculation. The actions of the Supreme Court are to the highest standards of ethics. Our recusal and disclosure system is robust and staunchly enforced by all judges. The crowd shifted uncomfortably in chairs, many taking illicit recordings under the no recording signs hanging in the studio. Let's get specific then, Musk replied, stroking the screen of his phone. On March 12th last year, Justice Keller exchanged 23 text messages with Marcus Blackwell, head of Neurotech, one of the companies most directly affected by the Watson ruling. They began at 2:14 p.m. and continued up to 11:47 p.m. that night. The studio fell into a collective intake of breath. Barrett's face didn't move, but her eyes widened slightly. That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Musk. Morrison cut in, loosening his tie. Do you have evidence of these discussions? I do, Musk replied matter-of-factly, pulling out a document from his jacket pocket, along with financial reports showing that 3 justices, Barrett included, had indirect investments in firms that would benefit from the Watson ruling in their managed portfolio accounts. Barrett's composure cracked at last. She reached across the table, her hands gripping it. That is completely untrue. My financial disclosures are public record and thoroughly vetted by ethics officials. Traditional disclosures, yes, Musk waved a hand. But the special management accounts set up under Wyndham Partners, which structure investments so direct disclosure obligations are avoided, but beneficial interests still entitled. Barrett's face drained of color, and Morrison looked lost, glancing between his guests and toward the producer offstage. For viewers just joining us, Morrison tried to regain control. We're discussing some allegations about Supreme Court investment disclosures. It's much more than that, Musk interrupted, his voice firm. This is about the integrity of the country's highest court. He addressed the camera. Americans have a right to know if the people making life-and-death judgments are truly unbiased. The studio lighting seemed to grow larger as every look focused on Barrett, who took a swallow of water, her obviously trembling hand lowering from the glass. I've invested billions building companies that monitor and process information. Musk continued, his tone strong but gentle. When I acquired X, I gained possession of the communication patterns demonstrating interesting connections. He stared at Barrett, such as messages arranging court hearings at proprietary events hosted by entities that have cases pending before us. This is outrageous, Barrett said, her voice wavering slightly. You're suggesting impropriety based on data you've mined from private citizens. That itself raises serious ethical and legal questions. I'm merely connecting public information, Musk replied with a shrug. Flight records, event attendances, financial disclosures, all public. The patterns just needed someone to put them together. She was already gone, the crash of a door echoing through the studio. The camera cut back and forth over the shocked audience, then focused back on Musk, who sat quietly, observing her depart. He rearranged the documents in front of him and drank water, his face undisturbed. Well, Musk replied, breaking the silence to the stunned host. I guess transparency hurts sometimes. He then looked into the camera. But the American people have a right to know who's really running their top court. Morrison seemed speechless. Ah oui, this is unprecedented, he stuttered. No, Musk replied, his voice resolute. What's unprecedented is the amount of sway that goes unreported among supposedly impartial justices. That stops today. He flashed a flash drive, his tone detached. And this is just the beginning. As Barrett stormed off, chaos erupted backstage. Producers rushed to try to get things back in order. Legal counsel appeared, and James Morrison sat in stunned silence, his mind whirling. Musk's feet remained still, his face in his phone as if everything was fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Morrison finally managed, his voice shaky. We'll take a short break too. Sort this out. The red broadcast lights flickered off, but the audience sat frozen, many still filming despite staff's frantic signals to stop. Security guards moved toward Musk, but he raised a hand to stop them. I'm not going anywhere, he said calmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The American people deserve to hear the full story. Behind the scenes, Barrett's security team surrounded her as she ran to the door. One producer chased after her, pleading, Justice Barrett, don't do this. Make your case through proper channels, she snapped, her voice cold but trembling. This attack was completely inappropriate. In the control room, network executives scrambled, calling in legal advisors. Can we even televise the remainder of this? What's our risk? The executive producer thought. The damage was done anyway, however. Clips of Barrett's dramatic exit flooded social media. Hashtag Barrett storm out and hashtag Musk reveals Supreme Court trended within seconds. Both hashtags had more than 100,000 posts within a few minutes. News alerts flashed across screens. When the broadcast resumed from its break, Morrison had partially collected himself. Musk sat by himself now, the empty chair of Barrett a stark reminder of what had occurred. We apologize to our audience for that sudden diversion, Morrison began. Justice Barrett has left the interview. Mr. Musk, would you care to respond to what just occurred? Musk gestured. I understand her reaction. No one enjoys being grilled, but the Supreme Court justices are hearing cases that determine every American's life. Justices are to some extent accountable to the greatest degree of transparency and moral conduct. But these charges, Morrison began to protest, are well documented. Musk concluded for himself, running his hand over the flash drive. And soon enough, the public will be able to judge it all for themselves. I'm relying on the American people being smart enough to judge the facts for themselves. A little while later, the Supreme Court made a curt statement. Justice Barrett stepped away on groundless grievances that deviated from the subjects the sides had been negotiating. The court will say nothing on pending cases. But Musk had already had the upper hand in controlling the story. Under his X account, he posted, Transparency shouldn't be disputed. American people deserve to know how their highest court functions. More documents at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Judicial accountability. Within the first hour alone, his tweet had been viewed 50 million times. X's servers were buckling under the load. Video of the interview was posted on social media, and lawyers started posting threads dissecting Musk's assertions. News shows cut into programming, and legal commentators argued about the implications. CNN's constitutional law expert Lawrence Tribe warned, if these allegations are true, they could be the Supreme Court's biggest scandal ever. Fox News' Sean Hannity replied, with a coordinated attack on a conservative justice by the tech elite. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow devoted her entire show to the story, emphasizing the importance of understanding the role of the court in American democracy and how the accusations have eroded public trust. As the evening drew in, protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court. Some of them waved pro-Barrett placards, but others called for transparency, with the placards reading, "No one above the law," and "Expose judicial corruption." Virginia police set up a security perimeter around Barrett's house as news trucks and cameramen thronged outside. Someone close to Barrett confirmed that she spent the evening reading over the allegations with her lawyers, preparing to react. "She's taking this extremely seriously," said the individual. Meanwhile, Musk held an unexpected news conference from his Austin headquarters. Dressed in the same black t-shirt he wore in the first place, he addressed the packed audience. The live stream quickly took off, receiving millions of watchers. "The Supreme Court has enormous power in our nation," he began, "but it operates in less transparency than any corporation or government agency. That ends today." Behind him, massive screens displayed charts and graphs, graphing intricate plots of data and money streams. Musk explained how his engineers discovered these anomalies through the use of AI to pick up on communication patterns surrounding Hallmark court decisions. "We first saw anomalies with the Watson case," Musk said, displaying a graph of communication patterns through the roof before the verdict. "Our algorithms caught those anomalies. This is not a matter of hacking. We simply correlated public data in ways no one has previously: flight records, financial filings, court documents. The correlations existed. Someone just needed to put them together." A Washington Post journalist requested to put up her hand. "Mr. Musk, some are calling this a witch hunt of conservative justices. How would you respond?" Musk smiled weakly. "Data isn't political. We regarded all 9 justices the same. If the others have nothing to hide, they shouldn't object." He paused. "In fact, our investigation revealed questionable trends with 2 liberal justices, too. This isn't a question of partisanship. It's a question of integrity." This revelation sent shockwaves through the media. News outlets updated their coverage, with headlines now reading, "Musk claims liberal justices implicated." A reporter from the Wall Street Journal pressed him for more details on the liberal justices involved. All in due time, Musk replied, "Tonight, we'll release a full analysis. No one gets special treatment." True to his word, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Musk's staff released a 150-page document titled "The Court in Shadow," a data analysis of Supreme Court influence networks. The document listed communications, financial ties, and meeting records between 3 justices, 2 conservative and 1 liberal, and outside interests in cases before the court. The document took down servers as millions downloaded it. X experienced outages as users reposted quotes, and legal forums were filled with analysis. Law professors began to live stream their breakdowns of the results. By midnight, crowds outside the Supreme Court swelled into the thousands. National Guard units were placed on standby, and protesters clashed with counter-protesters. No official words issued from Barrett's home, but lights burned deep into the evening. Musk continued to post throughout the night, maintaining a steady stream of updates. "This is just the beginning," he wrote at 3 a.m. "We're developing an AI transparency system to apply to all government functions." The days of backroom deals are over. By morning, Musk's tweet had 7 million likes. News networks around the world carried the story as breaking news. The stock markets opened 600 points down, a sign of uncertainty. Legal tech firms, however, saw their stocks soar. The Liberty Foundation website was completely down, hacked by a message that said, "Site temporarily unavailable." In the afternoon, Barrett had a reaction of sorts with a formal statement. "I categorically deny any wrongdoing." Mr. Musk's accusations are a dangerous mix of half-truths and outright falsehoods. "I welcome a thorough investigation to clear my name."